why we are here and what we are doing here. Our aim is to develop the optimum healing state for living with and fighting ALS-MND. Since ALS is a systemic chronic degenerative illness that affects body, emotion, and mind, we're faced with a challenge few people understand. This challenge requires an approach which takes into account the overwhelming difficulties we face. We recognize two facts. Firstly, we have health. If we did not have any health, we would already be dead. The fact that our body exchanges oxygen for carbon dioxide is an ongoing act of healing. We are here because we have health, and we are here to heal. The aim of this group is to support the movement from health to healthier. Second fact we recognize is the reduction of stress is an act of health. In order to get our mind and emotions in a healthier place, we choose to reduce stress, and at the same time, we face the fact of our illness and mortality. We apply the method of small steps, where we make the smallest choices we can imagine that are healthy for us. This is a choice is to focus on our breathing, or the fact that we are alive, we are acting towards our health. It's essential to make choices which we can succeed at. Living with ALS-MND and reversing the damages caused is made up of thousands of small choices. In this group, we focus on these small choices, what we are doing, our success and difficulty, and what we will do. Our body is always healing. By reducing stress and giving ourselves successful choices, we're helping the body to heal. We accept we don't control the outcome of our choices or things beyond our control, but we can make successful choices to help our healing process every day of our lives. Meditation. The practice of meditation is a process of tuning in. The process of meditation is the practice of tuning in. So as you hear this voice, you're tuning in to what I'm saying. When you're tuned in, you can understand the attitude and meaning behind the words. When you practice meditation, you listen to your environment, become sensitive to your experience. At the same time, there can be lots of internal activity, noise, and busyness. Often we get caught up with inner preoccupations. And in meditation practice, we notice this. When tuning into our inner environment, we have moments of self-awareness, noticing ourself that is aware. Good meditation practice is continuously tuning in to this awareness. Anything can be used to support the natural process of tuning in to awareness. We're using our physical experiences as a means of noticing the act of awareness. So by following my words and being aware of their meaning, you may notice that you are aware. Looking at the clouds, the sky behind, or the inside of your eyelids when your eyes are closed. Notice you are aware. Listening to the sounds of nature, music, random noise, or tinnitus whistle. whatever the experience is, notice you are aware. Paying attention to the movement of air into and out of the lungs. Notice you are aware. Feeling the weight of our body, the contact points it has with chair or bed. Notice you are aware of your present experience. Often we have reactions, emotions, and thoughts, and their energy captivates us, even if we want different. We become aware of that too, and choose to notice ourselves being aware. There's something deeply peaceful about self-awareness. In the act of awareness, we experience unconditional calmness, acceptance, and the knowledge that we are alive. So we'll just take a silent minute and just notice whatever it is that you're aware of for the next minute. Talk a bit more about placebo and go into placebo a bit more. And it's there, it's like it's in my protocol. So, it's been part of the process for years for me. And I got, I'm not sure when, but I got Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo, some time ago. And there's a coffee stain on the cover, so I think I must have had it for at least 2 years, but I actually never looked at it. And I started looking at it and going, oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about, and that's what I'm talking about. So what I'd just like to do is to read some extracts from that and discuss it a little bit. I think I need my other glasses for reading. So I was really surprised by how much overlap there is between optimum healing state and the stuff that we do and talk about it, and then the approach in it is really reflected in his work. So anyway, when he was 23, he was in a really serious crash. A car drove into him and dragged him down the road, and when it stopped, he went tumbling for another 20 yards, and he had serious damage to his vertebrae, lots of damage there, and it wasn't looking like very good. He was advised if he didn't have surgery, he's probably going to end up being paralyzed. And so there's a lot of technical detail, so which I'm not going to go into. But I want to catch his initial response. Let's here. Maybe I was just young and bold at that time. So this is immediately after or within the days or weeks of the crash. Maybe I was just young and bold at that time in my life, but I decided against the medical model and the expert recommendations. I believe that there's an intelligence, an invisible consciousness within each of us that's the giver of life. It supports, maintains, protects, and heals us every moment. It creates almost 100 trillion specialized cells, starting from only 2. Keeps our hearts beating a little more than 100,000 times per day. And it can organize hundreds of thousands of chemical reactions in a single cell in every second, among many other amazing functions. I reasoned at the time that if this intelligence was real, and if it willfully, mindfully, and lovingly demonstrated such amazing abilities, maybe I could take my attention off my external world and begin to go within and connect with it, developing a relationship with it. But while I intellectually understood that the body often has the capacity to heal itself, now I had to apply every bit of philosophy that I knew in order to take that knowledge to the next level and beyond, to create a true experience with healing. And since I wasn't going anywhere, I wasn't doing anything except lying face down, I decided on 2 things. First, every day I would put all my conscious attention on this intelligence within me and give it a plan, a template, a vision, with very specific orders. And then I would surrender my healing power to this greater mind that has unlimited power, allowing it to do the healing for me. And second, I wouldn't let any thought slip by my awareness that I didn't want to experience. So clearly it a very insightful and revolutionary mind from an early age to be able to take such a different road. And he was aware of what he described as the intelligent, invisible consciousness with unlimited power. And there's a lot of different ways of describing that. My preferred word is essence, our essence or the essence. But you can use whatever word or words that you want. And I don't focus too much on that side of the equation, but it's always the basis for the approach that I take and share, because that's what meditation gave me, the experience of a state of mind which isn't dependent on the external world, which isn't dependent on my emotions, my thoughts, my feelings, how my body's behaving, how other people are behaving. It's not dependent on any of that at all. And meditation is the most frequent route to discover that, which is why there's so much meditation involved in Joe Dispenza's work. I really like his detailed description of how complex the body is, and how with this vast complexity working all the time, and which us in our limited minds, we don't really have too much to do it. We remember to eat and to do some things, but really all of this process is going on with very little involvement of our involvement. So there's an innate intelligence, if you like. And he talks about taking his attention off to the external world and to go within and connect with this. And this is exactly the purpose of why we do the guided meditation in the beginning. He also talks about that he had to take all the knowledge he had, all the philosophy that he knew, in order to take that knowledge to the next level and beyond, to create a true experience with healing. So it is literally to change the mind and change the paradigm, the norms that our mind lives with, to change them, because they're no longer serving where he was at. Because, of course, he was a cyclist and a doctor, and his orientation was very different. And so he had to change that. And he was aware that he had to use everything available to him in order to change that. And I really suggest the same as well. And it's, of course, easier said than done, and it's impossible to do everything. So we don't need to be perfect, but we do need to do. And hello, Amy. You're welcome. It's good to see you here. Glad you're able to make it. So he decided on two things. He would focus all his attention on this intelligence within him, and to give it a plan, a template, a vision. And for me, the expression and focus of a lot of that, and a lot of what he says, is actually in the true observation of I am healing, because that's what's taking place in the body, in the trillions of cells on an ongoing basis. Healing is taking place. So I am healing is a really true thing. And when we more that we recognize that, the more we become that. And second, I wouldn't let any thoughts slip by my awareness that I didn't want to experience. Sounds easy, right? That's what he says. So that's what his aim was. Of course, don't imagine that he was actually able to control every single thought. That's what his aim was to do. And the purpose of that aim was that his mind would be filled with things that would support his healing process. So it's very sensible, just totally sensible. So I want where that took him is the next paragraph. Against the advice of the medical team, I left the hospital in an ambulance that brought me to the home of two close friends, where I stayed for the next 3 months to focus on my healing. I was on a mission. I decided that I would begin every day reconstructing my spine, vertebrae by vertebrae, and I would show this consciousness, if it was paying attention to my efforts, what I wanted. I knew that it would demand my absolute presence. That is, for me to be present in the moment, not thinking about or regretting my past, worrying about the future, obsessing about the conditions of my external life, or focusing on my pain or symptoms, but being present in every single moment. And it's practice, because of course we have our habits, and our habits will pull us away from being present. And it's simply practice and more practice and more practice. And so we practice by noticing our sensations and being present with them. That's why in the guided meditation, I mentioned all the different, or some of the different key experiences and stimulations we have. The experience of breathing, the experience of sound, the experience of sight, of weight, the experience of our thoughts and feelings, and being present with them and accepting them, recognizing that I am aware of my experiences. And it doesn't have to be using that particular formula of words, but it's the meaning behind them that's important. So in chapter 3, I've just taken a few bits and pieces. I'll explain how, as long as you're thinking the same thoughts, they lead you to the same choices, which cause the same behaviors, which create the same experiences, which produce the same emotions, which in turn drive the same thoughts, so that neurochemically you stay the same. In effect, you're reminding yourself of who you think you are. But hold on, you're not hardwired to be the same way for the rest of your life. I then explain the concept of neuroplasticity and how we know that the brain is capable of changing throughout our lives, creating new neural pathways and new connections. So this is something I've talked a little bit about at times. And why it's so important. Why did this, using this information is not simply a question of knowing it, it's much more a question of using it is so fundamental for us to develop our healing ability, to be in the healing state of mind. When we're really in a healing state of mind, our symptoms, and pain and stuff, it doesn't matter so much. We're responding to our experiences with a healing state, and there's not more than that we can really do. And Joanne and John, good to see you. Glad you're able to make it. I just came across, just for you and Amy who just joined in, I want to talk about placebo, and I got Joe Dispenza's book, I don't know, at least a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, You Are the Placebo. And I never read it. I never really looked at it. So I picked it up today, and I was like, oh yeah, this is all about what we're doing and what we're about. So because we have to deal with how our minds are as well, so our minds are, made up of the neural pathways which already exist. And when we meditate and we get into a quieter space, there's less happening. That may well be a place where we're not actually following the neural pathways, because they're not echoing in our brain going blah, 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 blah. So that quiet space is something which is sought after, and there's a whole pile of different techniques and difficulties to discover it. I think there a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about leaning into calmness, and it's the same with the quiet space, and it's to lean into that quiet space. So it's not if we decide that it's something outside of ourselves, removed, that it's difficult to access, and so on, then that's just a whole bunch of neural pathway processes which aren't helping us. So the fact is, we've all noticed our mind being quieter at times. And we just need to acknowledge that and lean into that experience of a quieter mind. And it's leaning in, it's just imagining ourselves leaning into it. It's the simplest way I can express that. So he goes on about the difficulties with the mind. With this in mind, take a look at this list of some common limiting beliefs. So established neural pathways, which aren't doing us much good, and see which ones you may be harboring without being fully aware that you're doing so. And you might be aware of some of your limiting beliefs already, which is great if you do, because then you can develop an approach to face that. And we can talk about that if you want. So this is a description of or examples of limiting beliefs. I'm not good at maths. I'm shy. I'm short-tempered. I'm not smart or creative. I'm a lot like my parents. Men shouldn't cry or be vulnerable. I can't find a partner. Women are lesser than men. My race or culture is superior. Life is serious. Life is difficult, and no one cares. I'm never going to be a success. I have to work hard to make it in life. Nothing good ever happens to me. I'm not a lucky person. Things never go my way. I never have enough time. It's somebody else's responsibility to make me happy. When I own this particular thing, then I'll be happy. It's hard to change reality. Reality is a linear process. Germs make me sick. I gain weight easily. I need 8 hours of sleep. My pain is normal. It'll never go away. My biological clock is ticking. Beauty looks like this. Having fun is frivolous. God is outside me. I'm a bad person, so God doesn't love me. And on and on and on. And yeah, I mean, it might well be worth taking a note of the intrusive thoughts that you have when you meditate. And, you can even write them down during your meditation and then go back and close your eyes. And so you're just observing them. You're not trying to do anything about them at that moment in time. And just take note. And if it becomes a bit scary, you're having an emotional reaction to all these limited thoughts, then stop, because we're not trying to trigger, strong emotional reactions. But noting these things is noting the places in us where we have the capacity to do healing work. So it's really useful, because if we don't know where to do healing work, then it's harder to do it. So knowing these things is useful information. It's not a judgment. There's nothing negative about it. It's a positive thing, knowing these things, because then we can find steps to take. Yeah, this was just changing your beliefs and perceptions once isn't enough. You have to reinforce that change over and over. So for me, that's the same as the principle of small choices. It's making the small choices again and again and again and again and again. And you keep doing it, and small choices become more normal, and your mind starts changing because you're actually making small changes. You're not trying to make total changes to your neural pathways, because you can't. It simply doesn't work like that. Even if we have an experience which has a big impact and changes us as a person, to integrate that impact is a lot of small choices. We might make a big choice, but to apply that big choice, we're making lots and lots and lots of small choices. Because otherwise, how does it happen? So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I saw so much recognition in this. All right, so talk a little bit more about the placebo. To see why, let's return for a moment to the Parkinson's patients mentioned earlier, who improved their motor skills after receiving a saline injection that they thought was a powerful drug. So you'll recall the moment they moved into a state of better health, their autonomic nervous system started to endorse this new state by producing dopamine in their brains. So they got the injection, which was salty water, but they believed it was a powerful drug. And their brain responded as if that was true. That didn't happen because they were praying or hoping or wishing their bodies would make dopamine. It happened because they became people who made dopamine. Because they had believed that, their brain automatically made the dopamine. Unfortunately, however, the effect doesn't stick for everyone. In fact, for some, the placebo effect only lasts for a certain amount of time because they go back to who they were before, their old states of being. In this case, when the Parkinson's patients went back home and saw their caregivers, saw their spouses, slept in their same beds, ate the same food, sat in the same rooms, and maybe played chess with the same friends who complained about their old personalities and their same old states of being. It was their personal reality that was creating their personality. All of the conditions in their familiar lives reminded them of who they were before, so they just slipped right back into those identities, and the various motor problems recurred. They re-identified with their environments. The environment is that strong. So it helps you to understand why I changed my name and cut most relationships out of my life. Really, really clear boundaries, because I needed to have health, a healthy perspective around me and in relation to me. If I didn't do that, if I didn't hold that, then I wouldn't be. But because I had the healthy space within myself. So it's essential to be able to project that and express that outside. And people that I couldn't express that with, and there was plenty, I just tried to have as little to do with them as possible, or nothing, to go along. And so I wouldn't be slipping back. And sometimes it does happen, something happens to me, and my old emotional patterns, they kick back in again. It happens. And I pay attention, and I usually become I'll often isolate a little bit more when that happens. So I'll come back into my own healing space, my own deeper healing space, and feel stronger there again. And when I'm feeling stronger there again, I come out. And I've really practiced that so much. Let's see. So also trying to show you as well the importance of taking the initiative. And I know some of you do this on a daily basis anyway, but we can always ask ourselves the question, is there more smaller things that I can do? It doesn't necessarily have to be more bigger things. It can be more smaller things that I can do, which are healthy and creating these new neural pathways which are based on healing. So if you imagine that you change your brain, so the neural pathways are based on healing, then your whole life becomes an expression of healing. So it is a revolution to do this. I don't know if I've told everybody, or I've said it a couple of times maybe. But for me, this is like an apprentice healers group. I mean, some of you are healers as well, because you have the practice of healing. It's a daily practice, and it's not just taking supplements or doing things. It's an internal practice as well. And that's what this is about, and it's what Optimum Healing State is about, is that internal practice. So I'm really amazed that he's saying so much so similar. Oh yeah, okay. So there's one more bit of this, and I haven't actually read it well enough. And it's something we do in the healing meditation, in fact. In the healing meditation, we often start with first exercise is to be present. So how are we right now? So a couple of sentences on that, being present. Second part then is to share something which we feel strongly about. And so he talks about a choice with elevated emotion or energy creates new experience. So, of course, we have to have the choice to heal and to change. And the elevated emotion is what we're doing in the healing meditation. We're talking about something that we feel strongly about. We're elevating our emotions. So that's giving the energy to create change. That's why you notice that I'm never critical about emotions. It's always, how can we use these emotions to help us to change? And in that way, there's no bad emotions. That we have bad habits in relation to emotions where we get stuck in them. But the emotion itself is just an emotion. It's not good or bad. So yeah, choice with elevated emotions or energy creates new experience. So it's not just enough to repeat a mantra of any kind. There has to be some feeling. It has to be meaningful to us. So for me, noticing that I am healing was a very powerful emotional trigger for me. It really brings something very powerful home to me. But for you, it could be something quite different. And in some ways, it doesn't matter what it is. What it matters is that it's a strong emotion which you're able to use in creating a new experience in the present. So if you are imagining yourself being well, having a pina colada, swimming in the surf, or whatever that is for you, which is a happy, vibrant, healthy self-experience activity, and whether it's talking with people or having a strength with people that you didn't have, or or having a calmness that you didn't have, or or that you don't experience enough. Whatever it is, whatever is meaningful for you, and that can change from one day to the next. It doesn't have to stay the same. So when you're imagining that in the present, that's when it's the strongest. And our brain doesn't really mind too much that we're just sitting in our bed or in our chair. It doesn't really mind that much when we're focused on having an experience, imagining an experience and enjoying ourselves in that experience. Now, it may take me steps to get there to do that, but it's a really valuable aim. And for me, I am healing is also encapsulates that. That's why I said this phrase really covers a huge amount of ground, because I am healing is a fantastic state to be in the present. I'm really happy to be in the state of I am healing. And maybe that's something that I can explore more with other people and places. And I have done this when I'm faced with something which is difficult. I approach it from the state of me being in healing and facing this experience, this difficulty as a healing experience, even though it has nothing to do with my symptoms or, nothing to do with that. Just the fact that it's a difficult thing to do, I'm facing it as a healing experience. And so that changes my frame of reference. It's not just whatever's happening in my life. No, it's providing me with an opportunity to heal and to change. So I'm very glad to have rediscovered Joe Dispenza, and somebody was mentioning him last week or a couple of weeks ago, so it probably brought it back into my mind, so thanks for that. I think, I don't know, what do you think about this? Do you have any thoughts or that you want to share?
I did a book club with that book, but I'm so glad you reviewed it. It was great to be reminded.
And can I ask, at times, do you find yourself using bits of that methodology?
I try, and I try to listen to him. And that always helps.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Because it helps to reset our mind, and we're exposing ourselves, because it's an experience as well. Listening to Joe Dispenza, it's an experience as well. So that helps to reset our minds. It can be challenging sometimes, but that's part of it. And it helps to reset our mind to, be less drawn to the usual pathways, and to be more open to new pathways. Oh yeah, there was something which I thought was hilarious. In his first chapter in it is called "Is It Possible?" And you know how much I like the phrase. Is it possible? Is it possible for me to heal? Well, definitely, I'm already healing. Healing is happening. But if we don't notice that, or we want to talk about the future, we might go, is it possible for me to improve? Well, yes, it's impossible. It's possible. And when we ask ourselves a question, is it possible? We're already challenging the pathways that we have in the brain, because we're not just going, oh, it's not possible, Is it possible? We're asking that question, we're openly engaging. And I say when we're using this question and this technique, we need to find an answer which says it is possible. If our answer is no, it's not, if that's the case, unless we're doing some sort of therapeutic work with that answer, we need to find a different question, because it means that pathway is very strong there. And at the moment, we don't have any room to move with it. So we need to find another pathway which we do have some room to move, where we can say, yeah, it is possible. It is possible for me to be calmer. It is possible for me to be happier. It is possible for me to be, and so on. And so you can add in the easiest ones first. And when we add them in, we're reinforcing our capacity of creating new pathways. Is it possible? Well, yeah, it is possible for me to be calmer. And that was one that I worked on for months, if not years. Maybe I still do sometimes. It never has to be over. It's not about finishing something. It's about starting something and developing it. So when we practice, is it possible? It is possible. When we do that for things which are easier for us, then when we focus on something which is more difficult, we have more confidence that it is possible. And we start to be able to engage with that in a different way. So I just found that he doesn't use the question, is it possible, in this sense that I've just done it now. It was is it possible is showing actually let's see how is it possible that a sugar pill could not only lift the symptoms of deep-seated depression, but also cause bona fide side effects like nausea? And what does it mean that the same inert substance actually has the power to change how brain waves fire, increasing activity in the very part of the brain most affected by depression? Can the subjective mind really create those kinds of measurable, objective physiological changes? What's going on in the mind and in the body that would allow a placebo to so perfectly mimic a real drug in this way? Could the same phenomenal healing effect occur not only with chronic mental illness, but also with life-threatening conditions such as cancer? So, he really is. Yeah. So I think it really is on the button there. So I'll take him a lot more seriously. Sorry, I'm talking too much. So anybody else wants to say anything? Thanks, Priscilla. From Amy. Oh, hi. Sorry, internet issues. I'm definitely not the same person as I was when I was diagnosed in 1998. My beliefs have changed. My outlook has changed. That's great. That's fantastic. And that's it. This is the path of change. There's no healing without change. But there can be change without healing as well. We do know that. So this is an opportunity of change which we haven't chosen. So we have to, there's a necessity or a need or choice to change in a way which makes the most of this opportunity. Of course, we'd all prefer to be doing something else for sure, but this is the reality that we have. By accepting it and by working with it, we can change it. We are changing it, as Amy has pointed out. So if your healing practice is established internally, and you're taking, steps there, always look at what's the next step of the inner process of change, so that we can have a stronger inner healing taking place. And this brings about change in our relationships and our environment as well. And if that's something we feel it's very difficult for us to do, maybe that's something itself that could be the subject of healing, our capacity to affect our environment, so that we have a better healing relationship with our environment. Or maybe it's we're working on ourselves because we have too many thoughts or feelings which knock us out of the healing state. So we want to practice steps which are turning us towards the healing state. And as we turn towards the healing state, that actually is the healing state. Mightn't feel like it very much because we still have a lot of other emotions and stuff going on, but we're actually making this step, and making this step consciously. That is the action of the healing state. So I guess we'll leave it there for today, unless anybody has anything that they want to share or say.
I want to thank you. Friday, I had the ALS clinic, and I was so blown off course by the negativity. And now I feel stronger, back on track. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm very, very glad I've been able to help. Well, and also I sent out to some of you, not all of you, what do you call it? A review for the classes and stuff here, and some people filled it in, and thank you so much. It really touched my heart. Like, I was kind of crying when I was reading some of it, and I'll be sending it out to more people as well. It was just kind of an initial step, so but really, really, from the bottom of my heart, really thank you. I was, I'll start crying if I talk about it. So that's my Irish side, say something nice to me about me and I'll start crying. So I think I'll finish up now. It was great that you're all here today, and I wish you all a really good week, and maybe you make some new small healing choices. You have the time. And when you're making them, you make them. And when you're not, you're not. Or when you're not, you're resting. That's, my preference. So have a really good week, and make some nice healing choices for yourself.